He was 72 when it happened, alone. As he often was these days, the sun had barely risen. His house was still, the morning quiet pressing gently against the windows. It was a routine he had followed for years, a few quiet moments with himself before coffee, before the news, before the day asked anything of him. But that morning felt different. His breath quickened, his chest tightened, and before he could even sit back up, the room swayed. The next thing he remembered was waking up in the hospital, disoriented, fragile, and scared, not because of what he had done, but because no one had ever told him it could be dangerous, not at his age. My name is Dr. Edward, and I've spent the last 30 years working with thousands of older men who are strong, proud, and deeply human. Men who have walked through decades of life, only to reach a point where even something as simple, as intimate, as natural as self-pleasure begins to feel confusing or risky. This video isn't about shame. It's not about judgment. It's about truth, quiet, practical, life-saving truth. Because what happened to that man, it wasn't an accident. It was a warning, one I hope to help you understand before it's too late. Today, I want to show you 9 specific mistakes that many older men unknowingly make during their most private morning moments. Mistakes that, over time, can hurt your circulation, your nerves, your brain, even your heart, and more importantly, your sense of self. But here's the good news. These are not irreversible problems. In fact, once you understand them, you can begin making small changes that don't just protect your body, they restore your connection to it. And in case you've been wondering, no, I'm not here to tell you to stop. I'm here to tell you how to do it better, how to make your private time safer, more meaningful, and even healing. Because pleasure should never come at the cost of your health, not when you're over 60, not ever. Now, stay with me, because in just a moment, I'll walk you through the first mistake, and it's one that most men never even realize they're making until it's already taken something from them. Mistake 1. Skipping hydration and nutrition before self-pleasure. He woke up just like any other day, before the birds, before the sun touched the edge of his blinds. At 6:12 a.m., Mr. Harold, a 68-year-old retired engineer, moved through his usual routine in silence. No breakfast, no water, just the faint creak of his bed frame and the weight of habit pressing against his chest. He said it helped him feel grounded, that it gave his day a kind of rhythm. But last fall, that rhythm broke. Midway through what he called his private moment, he felt lightheaded, a strange pressure built behind his eyes. Within seconds, he was on the bathroom floor, disoriented, drenched in sweat, and struggling to stand. It wasn't a heart attack, but it was a warning. You see, the older male body doesn't wake up ready for action, not like it used to. After age 60, circulation slows during sleep, blood vessels tighten slightly, and the heart is still recalibrating from its overnight rhythm. Add to that an empty stomach, dehydrated tissues, and low blood sugar, and you've got a perfect storm. Now imagine asking your body to perform sexually, no less, before it's even had a sip of water, before a single calorie has entered your system. It's like trying to drive cross-country with an empty gas tank and frozen oil. You might get a few miles, but the damage builds fast. What most men don't realize is that sexual arousal, yes, even when it's solo, is a full-body event. Your heart rate climbs, blood rushes to the pelvis, muscles tense and release, hormones surge. It may feel small in the moment, but physiologically, it's a workout. And if your body hasn't been prepared, it's like going for a sprint with cold joints and no fuel. That's when the danger creeps in. Dizziness, spikes in blood pressure, even mini strokes, like Harold experienced. And the saddest part? It's preventable. So here's what I tell my patients. Your morning doesn't have to be rushed. Start slow. Give your body a gentle wake-up call. Stretch your limbs. Sip a glass of water. Have a small bite. Half a banana. A slice of toast. Even just a few almonds. It's not about making it complicated. It's about making it safe. A little nourishment, a little hydration, and a little patience. These aren't just acts of self-care. They're acts of respect, because your body, after all it's carried you through, deserves more than habit. It deserves preparation, permission, and presence. Harold learned that the hard way, but you don't have to. Now, if this first mistake hit close to home, the next one might surprise you even more. It's not about what you eat or what you skip. It's about what you look at and how the very first thing you see each morning could be quietly changing your brain in ways you never expected. Mistake 2, watching porn. First thing in the morning. It starts innocently enough. You wake up, reach for your phone just to check the time, maybe the weather. But your finger lingers. You scroll a little, one tap leads to another, before your feet even touch the floor. You've slipped into a world of flashing images, heavy breathing, and fantasy that promises to wake you up faster than any cup of coffee. For many older men, this has become a quiet ritual. No one talks about it, but it's there. A daily jolt of arousal, digital, instant, and entirely disconnected from reality. One of my patients, Mr. Allen, 70 years old, came to see me not long ago. His complaint? He couldn't feel much during intimacy with his wife anymore. "I still love her," he said, "but I don't respond the same. It's like something in me has gone flat." As we spoke more, the truth came out. For nearly a decade, Allen had started every day the same way, alone in bed, headphones in, eyes glued to the screen, chasing a rush he could never quite replicate in real life. He never thought it was a problem. After all, it didn't hurt anyone until it did. Here's what's really happening. When you flood your brain with high-intensity erotic content first thing in the morning, you're overstimulating your dopamine system, and over 60, your brain doesn't handle dopamine the way it used to. It becomes more sensitive and, paradoxically, more prone to burnout. What begins as a quick fix soon becomes a quiet rewiring. Your brain starts needing more to feel less. The touch of your partner loses its spark. Intimacy feels muted. Even pleasure becomes a kind of numb routine. And it's not just about relationships. Starting your day this way sets the tone for everything that follows. Your nervous system stays on edge. Focus drifts. Restlessness creeps in. You're chasing novelty, not depth. Instant stimulation, not connection. And little by little, it chips away at your confidence. Not because you've done something wrong, but because your brain has forgotten how to feel satisfaction from the real and the present. So what's the alternative? Give your brain a gentler start. Instead of pixels, try presence. Instead of scrolling, take a breath, step outside, feel the morning air. Let memory, real memory, guide your imagination. Remember the warmth of someone's hand, the scent of a familiar embrace. You don't need intensity to feel alive. You need truth, something that connects, not just excites. Allen made that change. It wasn't easy at first, but after a few weeks, something shifted. He felt more connected, not just to his wife, but to himself. "It feels like I'm waking up for real now," he told me. And that, to me, is what healing looks like. Now, while what you watch can quietly shape your brain, what often gets overlooked is how you position your body during these private moments. The next mistake is something so common, so subtle, that most men don't even realize it's harming them until the damage has already begun. Let me show you what's happening beneath the surface. Mistake 3, slouching or tensing in the wrong posture. George was 74 when he first mentioned it to me. "Doc," he said with a slight chuckle, trying to brush it off, "I don't feel as much as I used to. Takes me longer. Feels dull." He wasn't embarrassed, just confused. He was healthy for his age, walked every morning, still did his own grocery runs, but something had changed and he didn't know why. When I asked him to describe what his routine looked like, he gave a familiar answer. I usually just sit on the edge of the bed, lean forward, and get it done quick, same as I've always done. That's where the problem was hiding. You see, what many men don't realize is that posture matters, especially after 60. As we age, our nerves and blood vessels become less forgiving. The pudendal nerve, responsible for sensation and arousal, runs right through the pelvis. So do the internal iliac arteries, which deliver the blood that makes pleasure even possible. When you sit in a tight, hunched, or tensed position, especially day after day, you're not just getting it over with. You're putting real, lasting pressure on the very system that gives you feeling. Think about it. You're cutting off blood flow right when your body needs it most. You're compressing the nerves that carry signals of pleasure, connection, and climax. And over time, that quiet tension builds into numbness, tingling, delayed response, or even total loss of sensitivity. George wasn't losing his desire. He was choking it, slowly. With a habit that had become so automatic, he never stopped to question it. So I asked him to try something different, just one small change. Instead of sitting slouched or leaning forward, I told him to lie back, support his hips with a pillow, keep his knees slightly open. The pelvis relaxed, the chest lifted. I called it giving the body permission to receive. Within a few weeks, he came back smiling. "It's different," he said. "I can actually feel again. It's slower, softer, but it feels real." The lesson? Your body remembers how it's treated. If you rush it, tense it, fold it in half, it will protect itself by shutting down. But if you support it, open it, and let it breathe, it just might surprise you with what it's still capable of feeling. Now, while posture affects the physical side of pleasure, what happens after the act can often leave a deeper, more invisible mark. Some men don't talk about it. Others hide it behind a joke. But I've seen it enough to know it's real and it's powerful. Let's talk about the quiet guilt that too many men carry and how it might be doing more damage than you realize. Mistake 4, mourning shame, guilt, and inner criticism. He never said it out loud, not even to his closest friends. But every time Thomas finished, a heavy silence followed, not just in the room, but inside himself. He was 67, a widower for 5 years. Some mornings, he just needed a moment of closeness, even if it was only with himself. But afterward, always that same voice. "You're too old for this. What's wrong with you? This isn't normal." The pleasure lasted seconds, the guilt, hours. What Thomas didn't know, and what so many older men are never told, is that this kind of shame isn't just emotional. It's physiological. When you criticize yourself immediately after a vulnerable act like self-pleasure, your brain releases cortisol, the body's main stress hormone. And when cortisol spikes first thing in the morning, it disrupts your entire system. Testosterone drops, blood pressure rises, your immune function weakens, even your memory can fog. I've seen it over and over again. Men come into my office worried about fatigue, low libido, or brain fog. And sometimes, the root cause isn't physical, it's emotional. It's what they tell themselves in the silence. "I shouldn't have done that. I'm disgusting. What if someone knew?" That internal dialogue becomes a loop of stress, and the body listens. It always listens. Thomas carried that loop for years. Until one day, in a quiet conversation, I asked him gently, "What if you treated that moment not with judgment, but with kindness? What if you thanked your body for still feeling, for still wanting?" He didn't answer right away, but weeks later, he returned with a lightness in his voice I hadn't heard before. "It doesn't feel dirty anymore," he said. "It feels human." And that's the truth I wish more men understood. Pleasure is not a weakness. It is not a flaw. It is a sign of aliveness. A body that still wants to feel, a heart that still longs to connect. And even if you're alone, that moment deserves tenderness, not punishment. So the next time that quiet voice starts to whisper guilt, I hope you remember Thomas. And remember this, your biology is shaped by what you believe about yourself. Choose compassion, your body and your spirit will respond in kind. Now, while the emotional aftermath can weigh us down, there's another kind of warning that's just as important, but even easier to miss. It doesn't show up in your thoughts. It shows up in your body, in subtle signs that it's simply not ready yet. And if you ignore those signs, the risk becomes something much more serious. Let's take a closer look. Mistake 5, ignoring the signs. Your body isn't ready. Frank had always been an early riser. Even in retirement, his eyes would open like clockwork at 5:45 a.m. He liked the stillness of those hours. The world hadn't started spinning yet. And for a little while, it was just him and the silence. On most days, he would stretch, drink his tea, maybe take a short walk. But on the mornings when loneliness crept in stronger than usual, he'd skip all that and go straight into what he called getting some release. One morning, he messaged me, saying something felt off. I didn't even get halfway through before my chest started pounding. He said, I felt cold all over, dizzy. I thought I was going to pass out. Frank wasn't having a heart attack, but his body was speaking loud and clear. It just wasn't ready. You see, the body, especially after 60, wakes up slowly. While your mind might feel alert the moment your eyes open, your heart, blood vessels, and nervous system are still in transition. Overnight, your blood pressure dips, your hydration drops, your glucose stores run low, your circulation is focused on recovery, not stimulation. And when you push your body into sudden exertion, yes, even sexual exertion, without first checking in, you risk overwhelming a system that's still half asleep. Some signs are easy to miss. A racing heart just from standing up, a lightheaded stretch when you walk to the bathroom, cold hands, shaky breath, even dry mouth or tightness in your neck. They're not dramatic, but they're signals, gentle ones. And like a car in winter, if you rev the engine before it's warmed up, something inside begins to wear out. I often tell my patients this simple truth. Your body is smarter than you think. It knows what it needs, and more importantly, when it needs it. The key is listening. So if you wake up feeling off, even just a little, don't push through out of habit. Give yourself time. Drink a glass of water, sit by the window, let your system catch up with your mind. That small pause could be the difference between healing and harm. Frank did just that. He started using the first 20 minutes of his day to rehydrate, breathe, and tune in. It sounds silly, he told me later, but I feel more connected now, like I'm working with my body, not rushing it. And that's the shift we're looking for. Respect over routine, listening instead of pushing. Because aging doesn't mean giving up. It means getting smarter about how we care for the one body we've been given. Now, if listening to your body helps you avoid physical harm, the next mistake addresses something even more subtle. How doing the same thing, in the same way, at the same time every day can quietly numb your capacity to feel anything at all. Let's talk about the danger of routine without reflection. Mistake 6, making it a daily habit. Without reflection, Jerry never thought twice about it. Every morning before breakfast, before brushing his teeth, he would sit in the same armchair in his bedroom and go through his routine. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't driven by fantasy or loneliness. It was just automatic, a quiet habit, he once told me. It's like drinking coffee. I do it because I always have. But over time, something changed. It doesn't feel the same anymore, he admitted during one of our check-ins. I mean, physically it still works, but emotionally, it's flat. Like I'm going through the motions. But there's no spark. That's when we started looking deeper. You see, the body and the mind are beautifully connected, especially when it comes to intimacy, even self-intimacy. But when a ritual becomes too mechanical, too predictable, the brain starts to disengage. Neurochemically, we stop responding. What once brought a sense of connection, energy, even joy, becomes nothing more than background noise. And over time, that can actually dull your ability to feel arousal, to experience pleasure, or to emotionally connect, not just with yourself, but with others. It's called desensitization through repetition, and it happens when we forget to ask ourselves the most human question of all: why am I doing this? Jerry had never asked, and once he did, it stirred something in him. Not guilt, not regret, just awareness. He started skipping some mornings, not out of denial, but out of choice. He began checking in with how he felt. If he was anxious, he went for a walk instead. If he felt truly present and relaxed, he allowed himself the experience, but slowly, attentively. Within weeks, he noticed a shift. "It feels like I've reclaimed something," he said. "It's not automatic anymore. It's intentional." And that's the heart of this lesson. Pleasure without presence becomes noise. But when you pause, when you reflect, when you choose rather than repeat, you invite meaning back into something that had become hollow. So if your body still responds, but your heart doesn't, ask yourself, is this habit still serving me? Or am I just chasing a shadow of something I've forgotten how to feel? Now, while mindless repetition can numb your senses, there's another mistake many men make that digs even deeper, using pleasure as a bandage for something heavier, something lonelier. Let's explore what happens when intimacy becomes a way of coping, instead of connecting. Mistake 7, using masturbation as a coping mechanism for loneliness. Bill never used to talk much about his evenings. A quiet man in his early 70s. He had lived alone since his wife passed away 6 years ago. "I'm fine," he would say when people asked. "I have my routines." And he did. Tidy house, regular meals, crossword puzzles in the afternoon. But when the sun went down and the house fell silent, that's when it hit him. The weight of the quiet, the ache of an empty chair across the dinner table. At some point, without even realizing it, Bill had begun using self-pleasure not for intimacy, but as a way to escape, a way to fill a void that no amount of screen time or background noise could truly reach. This mistake is subtle, but it's real. When we turn to any form of stimulation, not just food or alcohol or television, but even something as natural as masturbation, as a substitute for connection, we're not actually feeding our need for touch or joy, we're numbing a deeper ache. You see, pleasure that comes from loneliness often leaves behind more emptiness. It might feel like relief in the moment, but afterward, when the chemicals fade, what's left is a deeper sense of disconnection. And over time, it builds into emotional fatigue. You're not healing, you're surviving. I remember when Bill finally said the words out loud. "It's not that I want sex, Doc, I just want to feel close to someone again." And in that moment, something shifted, because what he really longed for wasn't physical, it was human. A laugh, a hand on his shoulder, a voice calling his name. So we started exploring other ways to reconnect with that need. He began volunteering once a week at a local library. Called an old friend from college he hadn't spoken to in years. Started sitting outside with his morning coffee, just to exchange a wave or two with neighbors. And slowly, that sense of touch, emotional touch, returned. That doesn't mean he stopped self-pleasuring entirely, but now it wasn't a replacement for connection, it was a part of a fuller life. A life where he wasn't using pleasure to hide from loneliness, but to honor the fact that he could still feel, still care, still reach for warmth in different ways. So if you find yourself turning to these moments, not from joy, but from a place of sadness or silence, ask yourself gently, what is it I'm really needing right now? Maybe it's touch, or maybe it's simply to feel seen. And if that resonated, what comes next might surprise you. Because even when your why is clear, when you choose to engage in pleasure matters just as much. In fact, timing might be the missing link between harm and healing. Let's talk about why mornings aren't always your best friend. And when? Exactly. Your body is most ready for connection. Mistake 8, doing it too early in the day. Every day, every morning at 6:30 sharp, Paul would do the same thing. He'd wake up, sit on the edge of his bed, and before even brushing his teeth or stepping outside, he'd go straight into his morning release. "It gets the edge off," he told me once. "Help me feel like I'm in control of the day." And for a while, it seemed harmless enough, routine, predictable, quiet. But then something shifted. He began feeling more tired during the day. His mood dipped mid-morning. His blood pressure readings, which had always been stable, started creeping upward. And the biggest concern? He no longer felt that emotional lift afterward, only a kind of dullness, like something was out of sync. But he couldn't name it. Here's what most older men don't realize. Timing matters. Your body isn't just a machine you can flip on and off. It runs on a carefully tuned rhythm, a symphony of hormones, blood flow, nervous system states, and internal clocks that all shift throughout the day and in the early morning hours, especially between 5 and 9 a.m. So your body is still recalibrating. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is naturally at its peak. Your testosterone, ironically, is also starting to rise, but your hydration is low, your blood is thicker, your nervous system is just transitioning from rest to alertness. It's not the ideal time for physical exertion or emotional release. When you make morning masturbation a daily habit, especially without awareness or preparation, you may be stacking multiple stressors together. Elevated cortisol mixed with sudden arousal, low hydration, and compressed nerves. It's no wonder some men feel drained, dizzy, or even anxious afterward. Your system simply isn't ready. So I offered Paul a new approach. Just shift the time. I said, try late afternoon, between 4 and 7 p.m. It felt strange to him at first. He'd always linked that part of his life to early mornings, private hours before the world was watching. But within a couple of weeks, he noticed something powerful. More energy in the morning, less emotional crash, and a deeper sense of satisfaction when he finally allowed himself that moment later in the day. That's because the late afternoon is a sweet spot. By then, your body is hydrated, your blood pressure is stable, cortisol has tapered off, and for many men, testosterone levels begin to rise again after their midday dip. The nervous system is calmer, the mind is less cluttered. And the act itself, it becomes less about habit and more about intention. So if you've been forcing your body into intimacy first thing every single day, not out of desire but out of routine, ask yourself, what might change if you simply waited? What if you gave yourself the gift of timing, of finding the right moment, not just the earliest one? Because pleasure, when timed well, can do more than soothe, it can restore. And speaking of restoration, our final mistake isn't about the body or the clock. It's about something deeper. It's about how you see yourself, not just as a man, but as someone still worthy of softness, of connection, of quiet dignity. Let's talk about why how you frame your private moments may be the most important thing of all. Mistake 9. Treating pleasure as a secret instead of a practice of self-respect. Leo always turned off the lights. Always made sure the curtains were drawn, the doors locked, the room completely silent, even though he lived alone, even though no one was coming in. I don't know, he once told me with a nervous laugh. It just feels like something I shouldn't be proud of. He was 71, widowed for nearly a decade, sharp-minded, warm-hearted, still wore a pressed shirt to the grocery store, still said ma'am to strangers, but when it came to his own body, his own pleasure, he treated it like a trespass. Something to hide, something done quickly, quietly, with no eye contact, not even with himself. And he's not alone. So many men over 60 carry this quiet shame, not because anyone told them yesterday that pleasure was wrong, but because somewhere along the way, the world stopped talking about it, and in the silence, they built walls around their desire, around their vulnerability, around their humanness. But here's what I want you to know. Pleasure, especially in later life, is not a secret to be hidden. It's a practice of self-respect. It's a way of saying, I'm still here, I still feel, I still matter. When you treat your intimate moments as something shameful, you unconsciously tell your body that it's not worthy of softness. You harden, you rush, you disconnect, and over time, that shapes how you feel, not just in the bedroom, but in life. It creates a quiet undercurrent of embarrassment, a story that says, I'm too old for this. This part of me doesn't belong anymore. But when you shift that mindset, even just a little, something profound can happen. One afternoon, Leo decided to do just that. No more rushed mornings, no more dim rooms like he was doing something wrong. He lit a candle, played soft music, took his time. Not out of vanity, but out of reverence for his body, for his memory, for the man he still was beneath the wrinkles and worries. It felt like coming home, he told me weeks later, like I was finally allowed to be me again. That's the gift you give yourself when you let go of secrecy and embrace dignity, when you stop hiding and start honoring. This isn't about turning pleasure into a performance. It's about turning it into presence. So if you've spent years treating your desire like a leftover, something to deal with behind closed doors and closed hearts, maybe it's time to open something again, not to anyone else, just to yourself. Because no matter your age, your skin, your history, you still deserve to feel good in your own body, not as a privilege, as a birthright. And that brings us to where this journey started, with a warning, yes, but more than that, with a chance to reclaim something quiet and real. So let's wrap this up with a few closing thoughts about your body, your rhythm, and the gentle power of choosing wisely. Final thoughts: reclaiming intimacy, restoring self-trust. If you've made it this far, I want to tell you something simple. And from the heart, thank you, not just for listening, but for being willing to listen. Because this conversation isn't easy. It's tender, it's private, and for many men, it's been buried under decades of silence, shame, and confusion. We've walked through 9 mistakes today, not to judge, not to point fingers, but to shine a soft light into places that have been kept in the dark too long. Mistakes that, on the surface, might seem harmless. Skipping breakfast, watching a quick video, sitting the wrong way, brushing off a little guilt. But in truth, these small habits can ripple into something far bigger, disrupting your circulation, your hormones, your brain, and most importantly, your sense of self. But here's the part I want you to remember. None of this means you failed. It simply means your body is changing. And now, you have the chance to change with it, to stop moving through your mornings on autopilot and start treating those moments with care, curiosity, and compassion. Whether it's pausing to drink water, or letting go of old guilt, or waiting for the right time of day, or simply giving yourself permission to feel human again. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Your desire to feel closeness, warmth, and pleasure doesn't disappear with age. It just becomes quieter, more sensitive, and more in need of respect. So if this video stirred something in you, an old question, a quiet memory, a flicker of hope, don't ignore it. Let that be your signal, not to stop, but to start again, with new awareness, new rhythm, new dignity. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not alone. You're still a man. With breath in your lungs, with wisdom in your heart, and with every right to feel good in your body, in your mind, and in your life. And if this message felt like something you've been needing to hear, I invite you to share it with a friend, a brother, someone who may also be carrying quiet questions of his own, because this kind of healing isn't just personal, it's powerful. And if you're still with me, just type "still growing" in the comments below. Let's remind each other that age isn't the end of feeling. It's the beginning of feeling more deeply. Until next time, take care of your body, take care of your heart, and most of all, take care of you.